You're entering the zone. Wesley Ruff's Red Zone, brought to you by America First Credit Union, where members come first.
You're looking at the John M. Huntsman Center on the campus of the University of Utah, where tonight 2 of the top 10 gymnastics teams in the country will go head-to-head. It's the undefeated and second-ranked Utah Red Rocks hosting the number 7 Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State comes in with a record of 9-2, while Utah is a perfect 9-0 on the season so far. Should be a good one, so get ready for women's college gymnastics coming up right here on ABC4. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to University of Utah Gymnastics. Tonight, it's the Utes against the Oregon State Beavers, along with former Utah All-American Missy Marlowe. I'm Kent Roop, and Missy, tonight, Utah comes in undefeated, ranked 2nd in the country, but they've got a pretty good test on their hands tonight.
Well, this is going to be a great meet. Number 7, Oregon. They're in the top 10 on every event in the country, so it's going to be a great competition.
Oregon State coached by Tanya and Michael Chaplin, the husband and wife duo, much like Utah's husband and wife coaching team.
Right. And they're coming off 2 losses at UCLA, and those are the only 2 losses they've had all year. Of course, Utah managed to just squeak ahead of UCLA in their last meet on Sunday, so I think both teams are ready to prove something tonight.
Well, we're looking forward to some competition here, maybe the best competition since Utah hosted Georgia.
Absolutely.
Here at the Huntsman Center. Oregon State is led by a couple of gymnasts that you may have even heard of. Jamie Lance is one of them, and she's something pretty special.
Right, and she has bested a 9.9 on every event, not necessarily the season, but that's career high, so look for a potentially huge all-around score from her.
And the other one is Tasha Smith. She had a 10 earlier this season on floor exercise at home against BYU.
Right, so bringing in some 10, some really high scores. So Utah has their work cut out for them. I think Utah is obviously the better team in warm-ups, maybe on paper, but that remains to be seen in competition.
And of course, for Utah, it all starts with senior All-American Ashley Postel. This girl is having a fabulous year and a fabulous career here at Utah.
You can't say enough about her. She has the career highs at Utah, and she is chasing all 6 of the remaining records. I mean, what more can you say? She's just kind of leaves us speechless as we watch her. She's simply amazing.
And when you have a senior like that leading on the court, on the floor, and also in the locker room, this Utah team has a chance to do something really special this year.
Absolutely, and the neat thing too is there are still other girls behind her that are almost as good, and on any given night probably could overtake her. Christina Basquette, we've seen, has come awfully close this year, as has Nina Kim also.
So we'll look for Ashley Postel, Christina Basquette, and the rest of the Utes and see how they can do tonight against the 7th-ranked team in the country, the Oregon State Beavers. University of Utah Gymnastics is right around the corner. Welcome back to the John M. Huntsman Center, where tonight it's Utah and Oregon State. Kent Roop along with Missy Marlowe, and the Utes will start on vault. And Oregon State, of course, will start over there on the uneven parallel bars. And Missy, what do you anticipate? What are we looking for from the Utes in particular in this meet tonight?
Well, it's obviously going to be a fantastic meet, and the situation is this. Utah should win this meet. I think everyone knows that, but they are not so much better than Oregon State that they can afford, really any mistakes or to be sloppy here and there. Oregon State had a great warm-up. Of course, coming in number 7, they feel like they can beat the number 2 team. I mean, that's not that big of a difference in terms of placing. So they're here to do a good job, and Utah's coming off a week and a half of breaks and some much-needed rest, really. Coaches always worry about the timing and the complacency of their athletes after a break, but really, it's in a high-impact sport like this, it's usually a pretty positive thing.
So against another top 10 team like Oregon State, Utah can't afford to count any falls, especially. But as you get ready for the final month of the season, Coach Marsden wants to fine-tune and just keep getting better and better as you get ready for regionals and nationals, right?
Well, everything's always a warm-up for regionals and nationals. So, yeah, they've made some decisions that they've changed on some vaults and some things from the previous meet. So we'll see what they decide to throw based on warm-ups.
All right, first up on vault, Missy, for the Red Rocks is Nina Kim. And, boy, that Minnesota meet, she went all around, and she was fabulous.
Well, Nina's coming off a few injuries, so we'll see how she does on her layout. Yurchenko full here. And absolutely beautiful. And the neat thing about that is it just sets the tone for the entire competition.
Wow. When your leadoff vaulter sticks one like that, that's a good way to start the night.
That's a great way to start. Here we see it again. Full twist. Just a nice, tight, solid vault.
And leading off on bars tonight for the Oregon State Beavers is Kara Boland.
Halfway through the bar routine. Giant swing. To an Arabian double front. Really a difficult dismount and just a small step on the landing. You know, that looked so easy for her. She's completely extended and just a small step on the landing.
That was Kara Boland for the Oregon State Beavers. And that will lead to the next vaulter for the University of Utah, freshman Kendall Robarts.
And the coaches just have not enough or too many good things to say about Kendall. She's had a fantastic year so far. Stepped up in cases where she wasn't really expecting to, and they've been nothing but absolutely thrilled with her. And that is why a round off, half on, pike off with just one step forward. Now the Utes have taken care of some of these steps in the last couple meets, and here we're seeing, again, just not completely perfect on the landings, although the vaults themselves are just gorgeous. And you can see a clear 10th on the landing there.
Pretty good effort all around by the freshman Kendall Robarts. Now over on the bars for Oregon State, it's Whitney Watson. This Oregon State team, we should emphasize that this is a very much improved Beaver gymnastics team, and these guys are expecting to make some noise later on when we get to regionals and nationals. They expect to be there, don't they?
Well, in the 7th place, that's a precarious spot. Top 6 make it to the Super 16 finals, so they're really on the bubble. They have got an awful lot to prove throughout the remainder of the season. They're not just trying to maintain. They need to break into the top 6 to be in the real championships.
And they could take a big step toward that with a good performance at the second-ranked team in the country here.
Right. She's a little bit close on that release move as she caught. She did not take an extra swing, which is a little bit low on the shoot half over low bar. There's a blind full pirouette. She'll do a tuck double back, just a step on the landing. A little bit of a tight routine, not quite the big swinging, we'll see.
So that was Oregon State's second athlete on bars, Whitney Watson. And that will lead us now to Daria Bijak for Utah on the vault.
And Daria is having an unbelievable season. And one thing I've noticed, besides just her phenomenal gymnastics, is she just seems happier and more confident than ever. She just is really emerging, even as young as she is, as a team leader in the way that she carries herself and interacts with the other gymnasts. And look at that, a huge step on the landing, an incredibly difficult vault, front handspring, front layout. She's the only one we've seen do that this year, and the reason why is because it is just so incredibly difficult.
Now we saw her take quite a step. What was it, just a case of over-rotating?
Well, she over-rotated. She didn't quite have the lift off the horse that she's had in a few of the other meets. A little bit of bent arms on the horse, and she really had to continue the stretched driving position through the air so that she didn't come up short. And when your entire body lands in front of your feet just a little bit, it tends to shoot you forward.
So that was Daria Bijak, Utah's third athlete on vault, and that will lead us over to the bars and Oregon State's Laura Ann Chong.
There's her mount, a vault or a hecht over low bar. Setting up for her first big release move, a blind change, piked Jaeger. Caught a little bit close with bent arms and no break in the swing. To a beautiful pack salto named after the first Chinese gymnast to ever perform it. It is required that the gymnast move between the bars at least twice. Every handstand obviously must be in a nice, completely vertical and a gorgeous landing on her double front dismount.
Laura Ann Chong for Oregon State. We are halfway through the first rotation, and we'll be back to wrap up rotation number 1 right after this. Back here at the Huntsman Center, up on the vault for Utah is Annie DeLuzio.
And Annie warmed up a double twist. I don't know if she'll compete it. And they opted to play it safe. And again, another hop back. That really is almost too easy of a vault for her. She's just so incredibly powerful. And you see it by the big hop. But round off back handspring, stretched full, just a little bit too much of a pike. Like I said, she warmed up a double twist, but was just a little bit low coming in on the landing.
Over on the bars for Oregon State, it's Mandy Rodriguez.
Again, a vault over low bar. Blind half pirouette to another pike Jaeger. That was caught with a little bit better extension through her arms. Back salto. Remember that the routine started at 9.5 and move up in difficulty from there by doing more than just the required basics. There's blind half to another double front and just a hop on the landing again. Both teams really aren't controlling their landings too well, so they're not going to be gaining any tenths on each other that way.
Well, we'll see if the Utes can make up some ground right here as Christina Basquet is up on the vault.
And the last time we saw Christina, she absolutely nailed this. It just dropped from the sky and stuck it cold. Here's a full and a half twist. And pretty much the same thing again. You see just the slight, almost like a toe raise to help keep her feet on the ground and not actually hop. Full and a half twist, a completely blind landing, just really hard to judge the landing on something like that.
Very nice vault by Christina Basquet, who hit a 9.975 in Utah's last home meet here against Utah State and Southern Utah.
Well, I think we'll see that.
She's capable.
Absolutely capable, and I think we'll see that probably go more than a 9.9 at least. We'll see what they do.
On bars for Oregon State, it's Jamie Lance.
Here's the top all-arounder, in fact, the only all-arounder tonight for Oregon State. There's a vault half or a Veronin half over high bar. Blind full. Another half, just a slight leg separation on her pirouetting there, and she's just barely short on that straddle back to handstand over low bar. Again, she has scored above a 9.9 as a career high on every event. Setting up for a dismount, giant swing to double layout and a good solid landing. Again, just a slight slide is not a deduction. There will be a half attempt to 1 attempt depending on the size of a hop.
And now this Huntsman Center crowd is anxious to see the All-American, the senior, Ashley Postel.
Ashley is leading the country in the all-around right now and leading in vault. She's doing a layout full, and again, just a hop on the landing. You know you're pretty good when your standards are, do I get a 10 or do I not get a 10?
Two
right?
10s this year for Ashley
Yeah.
on vault. 2 10s, once against Minnesota and once against Utah
Right.
State.
Well, and every one of these Utes that did the layout Yurchenko full, they just piked it down too much. They all came extended off the horse and completely straight, but halfway through the somersault, just pulled in too tight and just got their feet underneath them just a little bit too much.
Our final competitor on the bars for Oregon State will be Jennifer Kessler.
There's a kip to high bar, straddle up handstand, full pirouette to a Tkachev, immediate shoot half over low bar. Dismount sequence. Half in, half out. Again, another large hop of the landing, so neither team really digging in their feet and sticking their landings. You know, and through 5 scores, that's 5 tenths off your team score right there. I mean, big deductions when you add them all together.
All right, we are through rotation number 1, and we'll come back to the John M. Huntsman Center, check the scores, and send the Utes over to the bars. Coming up right after this. We are back at the Huntsman Center. It's college gymnastics night with Utah and Oregon State, 2 of the top 10 teams in the country. And after the first rotation, Missy, Utah looking very good. Some nice scores on the vault.
Well, they did get some good scores. I was actually surprised a few of them are quite what they were. Not that their vaults weren't tremendous, because they were, but they just weren't sharp on their landings, kind of back to where they were closer at the beginning of the season. And probably a result of having almost 2 weeks off between their last meet and this one. So again, they're back to the drawing board as far as steps go. The vaults themselves don't need any work. They're wonderful. They just need to get their landings. Although we saw the same problems with Oregon State on bars.
Christina Basquet had a 9.95, as did Ashley Postel. One of the judges gave Ashley a 10, and the other one a 9.9 for a 9.95 average. So a couple of 9.95s, and Nina Kim led off with a 9.9, so some very good scoring. And Utah with a big lead because Oregon State did not score quite so well on bars, not as well as you thought.
No,
perhaps.
not as well. And they have a season regional qualifying average of 49.02, so they're quite a ways below that. They didn't have to count a major mistake on bars. They just looked a little tight. You know, it's hard to come to Utah and open up when you're used to competing in front of a couple thousand people, and there's 12,000. That first event can, unfortunately, take some getting used to.
So now it's Oregon State on the vault and Utah on the bars. And first up on vault for Oregon State is Megan Devincenzi. Let's see what she's got.
She has got a Yurchenko layout half twist. Round off back handspring, lay out half. A little bit loose to the positions. We'll see in the replay. She bent her arms on the horse just a touch and wasn't completely straight. Did a little bit of a pike to an open on the half twist.
Utah's first competitor on the bars is Jamie Dietzkrieg.
Here's her first release move, a toe on, toe off, to high bar, right back to shoot half. Again, the judges are looking to see how sharp, how crisp the handstands are on top of the bar. Every 10 degrees off the handstand is a temp deduction. And the combination of the difficult elements are bonus also, as well as just the difficulty of the individual moves. That was a good, solid routine. She was a little short on one handstand. It was a little bit hard to see from the camera angle. One handstand was a little short, and then, of course, the step on the dismount here. You see double layout, a good stretch in the air, and just a large step back.
Next up on vault for Oregon State, Brooke Barkley.
And here's a full twist, an excellent body position through the back handspring on the horse and the full. And again, just a little bit too much of a pike down with a large step back on the landing.
And that leads us over to the bars, where Utah's Jessica Duke is getting ready to go.
Jessica's a senior and a hometown favorite from Sandy, Utah, trained with Mary Wright, an assistant coach for the Utes at her gym at Olympus Gymnastics.
And the home crowd does like Jessica. They really pull for this young lady. See if she can reward the crowd with something special here.
There's a hop full to a ganger, little bit close to the bar. Shoot half. Giant swing, half in, half out, and just one balance. They just can't quite get the landings under control.
She fought it.
She did. We'll give her credit for fighting.
Let's see what the judges think about that, but she really tried to hold on here.
You know, and she didn't look off balance on the landing. It looked really solid.
On the vault for Oregon State, this is Yuki Lam.
There's another layout half twist. And a really strong vault there. That was the most explosive vault we've seen so far from Oregon State. A really good pop through her shoulders, really tall and light and explosive off the horse.
We're kind of waiting to see what this number 7 ranked team in the country can do. And a nice vault by Yuki Lam right there for the Oregon State Beavers. For the Utes on bars, it's going to be the young Canadian, Gail Mackey.
Here's the start of her routine. Blind half to a front half over the high bar, or a Veronin. Giant to an eagle grip, to another Jaeger. There's 2 big release moves. That one was done from an eagle grip. Incredibly difficult hand placement to release from. Giant, and a double layout, and there's the landing. Okay, these Utes need to take that and run with it, because that was solid.
Keep that on videotape and study that one for a while. We are halfway through rotation number 2. We'll be back with more right after this. We are back, and it is time on the vault for Oregon State for Jamie Lance.
Here's a layout full again. Round off onto the board back handspring, and just the slightest form break right off the horse. High, light in the air, and really easily landed. A good vault for Oregon.
She seemed to be pleased with that. High 5s or high 10s all around, depending on how you prefer to look at that. So again, some enthusiasm now from the Oregon State Beavers. Maybe starting to feel like they're getting.
Yeah, I think they look a little bit more comfortable now that they're on vault.
On bars for Utah, this is Daria Bijak.
Daria has really come out of her shell from last year. I think, you know, coming from halfway around the world and being a freshman has got to be just so difficult. I'm sure most of us can't even understand what that first year must have been like. And she did a great job last year, but she seems so much more relaxed and happy this year. And she's really emerging as a team leader. You can just see in the way she interacts with the other girls that she just really seems like she's someone that's always there for her teammates. And her performances
Now
this
that
year
looked hard.
have been extremely good. And she is absolutely knocking this routine out so far. She has been dead on every single element. Let's see if she can hold on to her dismount here. Reverse grip, double front, one step on the landing, and really that was the only problem in that routine. That was a flawless performance other than the step on the double front.
She looked fabulous all the way through that routine.
That is such a hard landing to judge. It really is.
Oregon State's Tasha Smith is next on vault.
Another layout full. Now, and same thing, it's hard to say. I keep trying to think of creative things to say, but it's hard when we see so many of the same vault. It was a good, strong vault. She had good body position. Again, just the step on the landing.
Pretty solid all around for Tasha Smith for Oregon State. Over on bars, next up for Utah is going to be Christina Basquet, coming off a 9.95 on vault. We'll see how Christina follows that up here tonight.
Well, it's like we said at the beginning, Ashley has managed to win all the meets, but in each meet there have been a couple other years that have been awfully close behind her.
Christina's been on her heels.
Right.
A lot of those in a lot of those events. There's no question about it.
And this is the event that she won the national champion as a freshman. There's her reverse hack to immediate hack salto, just an unbelievable combination. If she were to ever be off, and she didn't take it over the bar on that. Now, with her talent level, she covered without any form breaks or extra swings, but clearly it was a mistake. Now, technically, the judges really can't deduct for that, although they will a little bit. And then just a step on the landing.
It's one of those scenarios, though, where, again, it starts at a 9.5, and then you add as you go, right? But maybe that won't be enough to add.
Well, that wasn't a move that was difficult enough to add the difficulty or add the connection. So, no, technically, it really doesn't matter, except that everyone knows she's supposed to make the pirouette over the bar. So, we'll see what the judges do.
Oregon State's final competitor on the vault will be Mandy Rodriguez.
Mandy scored a 10 on the floor exercise, so we know she's powerful. Round up back handspring, full twist, and really just a lot of distance on that vault, but she really didn't salute and finish the vault before she took the big step on the landing.
Vault a little bit better for Oregon State, though, than bars.
Next up on bars for Utah, Ashley Hoffman.
And now batting cleanup for Utah, as she does in every event for the Red Rocks, Ashley Postel.
And Ashley had quite a wait there before her bar routine for them to figure out Christina's score. There's a toe-on, toe-off half to a Jaeger. Now remember, this is the event she has problems on, so if you see a problem, you let me know.
I was just going to say the same thing to you.
Well,
I think I just saw a problem.
I'm sorry. I feel responsible for that. I think we jinxed her. And that's interesting. She looks really distraught.
She really does.
I don't know if her hand slipped or what happened, because really she was in pretty good control on that, on the first part of the routine right there. Maybe on the replay we can see what went on. Meaning now
that is quite a display of emotion for the senior, and now this becomes very difficult now.
And here's her double front dismount. And really important, Ashley has a huge reputation that she needs to think about right now, which is, I'm the best gymnast in the country, at least score-wise. I'm the leader of this team, and to get emotional or to, act like, maybe I'm not going to have a good competition, something like that would just really be less than her best. I think she needs to pull herself together, come out on 2 events, and show everyone that she's really is a leader and really can just make a mistake and bounce back.
We'll see how Ashley does that on beam and floor. We are halfway through this competition between Utah and Oregon State. We'll be back with more from the Huntsman Center coming up right after this. We are back at the John M. Huntsman Center for college gymnastics. Utah and Oregon State. Kent Roop along with Missy Marlowe. And Missy, the scores tightened up a little bit. Oregon State with some nice vault routines and Utah giving some points back on bars.
Well, they sure did. That was an unusual performance for Utah. You know, something that's really important for Ashley Postel now is her nature is going to be to isolate herself from the team and really kind of pull back and go inside herself. And I really think the right thing for her to do is to surround herself with her team, be a good teammate. It's the right thing to do. I have no doubt she can come back as a strong competitor. It should be a motivating force after you have a mistake rather than something that's demoralizing. But we'll see what happens with both her and Christina Basquet.
And Utah is on the beam right now. This is Jamie Dietzkrieg.
Round off, layout. And again, she did not square up the round off. Keep her shoulders and hips square over the beam. Front aerial. Wolf jump. This is not the time for Utah to get tentative. They're an incredible beam routine, or beam team. And really, it's all mental. Whatever you want to think is going to happen will when you're up on beam. It's just the moves themselves are not that hard. Nothing that they haven't been doing on the floor since they're all probably 7, 8 years old. Just a matter of putting up there and keeping their heads on straight.
You may have to remember they're the second best team in the country and maybe even the best team in the country depending on what Georgia's doing tonight and for the rest of it. I mean, that mental aspect of it is very critical.
Well, it's huge. I mean, in beam, it's almost everything on beam.
The Oregon State Beavers are now on the floor, and leading things off for the number 7 team in the country will be Megan Devincenzi.
She has a season high of 9.775 and a career high of 9.825 on the floor. There's a pike double back. Remember, the teams will generally go from a consistent performance up to the most dynamic, highest scoring. The idea is to build the scores from the first performer up.
So you want your leadoff performer just to post a score and give the rest of the team something to build on.
Right. That was dangerously close to going out of bounds, but she did not step over the line.
You can step on the line.
On the line, but not over the line.
Not over the line.
Required dance combination. Whip half to front layout. And not some of the harder tumbling we'll see, but a good start for Oregon State. They managed to close the gap a little bit between the first two events. We're now in a 5/10 competition between the two teams.
That was Megan Devincenzi. For Utah on beam, this is Kendall Robarts.
And what Annie was doing there is just talking to her, basically giving her something to do to fill the time besides overthinking the routine. Front aerial. Tumbling series, back handspring step out, layout step out, good solid landing. There's a side aerial, right, cartwheel with no hands. The routines are 1:10 to 1:30. There's a required leap combination. A changement to split jump. And she Setting up for her dismount. Round off, double twist. One small step on the landing, and that really was a solid routine. No obvious mistakes, just the step on the dismount. No wobbles.
Kendall Robarts for the University of Utah. Now on the floor for Oregon State, Jennifer Kessler. And it's always interesting, Missy, the different music choices and the interpretation of those, the music and the rhythm and the beat.
Right, and the gymnasts will almost always get new floor routines every year, although they don't have to. And it said pretty much at this level, the gymnasts can pick their own music. They'd be hard-pressed to find anything, I think, that they didn't know that they could dance to at this point. So music that fits their style, the type of music that they like to move to. Second tumbling run, front handspring, front full to pike front. We've mentioned this in the past. The front tumbling does not look very difficult, but the timing of it really is. And any of those blind landings where they're coming in forward really can be tricky to judge, because if you're off even a little, they can be really hard to save. Whereas when you're going backwards, it's just easier. You can lunge a little bigger. It's a little easier to save them if they're off. But front tumbling is pretty unforgiving.
And when you're going backwards, you can see where, you can see as you're in the air where you're going to...
into the ground.
Yes.
Front tumbling landing. Really, Oregon State's putting together some good floor routines. Not some of the larger tumbling that they have later on in their lineup, but really if they're hitting their difficulty and not giving the judges a lot of deductions.
That gets us back over to the balance beam. And this is Christina Basquette for the University of Utah. She's got a little bouncing back to do as well.
Well, she does. Yes, not as big of a mistake as Ashley, but certainly less than her best.
We should mention Christina's bars score was 9.650.
Here's back handspring, step out to layout, step out. Now, Christina is the type of personality that if she does make a mistake, she doesn't get down on herself. She just gets very determined. And she's just by nature a very positive person.
Third in the beam rotation, whereas she's usually fifth on everything else for Utah.
And there we saw just a small balance check on her front somersault. Switch leap, straddle jump. To another straddle jump. There's bonus in the connection of those jumps. Scissor side, 1/10 bonus for the difficulty of the leap. And here's her dismount. Round off double twist. And again, just a small hop. Really pretty solid routine for Christina, and she seems pleased with it.
The next competitor for Oregon State on the floor is Kara Boland.
First tumbling run, round up back handspring, pike double back. You know, the one thing the Utes have going for them this year is that their tumbling is so incredible. So when teams come in and, only their last one or two gymnasts do the harder tumbling, in the past that wouldn't have stood out so much. But because Utah's so strong on floor this year, it really has made the other teams pale in comparison, more so than in the past. Round up back handspring, 2.5 twist, and just slightly to the right on that. The gymnasts may also choose their choreographers. So many of them have, they're not allowed to have a fourth or a third coach paid for due to NCAA rules. Many of the coaches on the school staff are choreographers. A lot of times they go back to their old club coaches. It's the gymnast preference. But a lot of them will have several different choreographers throughout a team. With half, front full, slightly under twisted on the whip half.
That is Kara Bolin for Oregon State. And that gets us halfway through the third rotation. We'll be back to finish up rotation number 3 in just a moment. And we're back with Nina Kim on the beam for Utah.
And Nina is so comfortable on the beam, and it is so fun to watch her. Her flexibility is so beautiful. And she makes these moves look so easy. Here's back handspring layout, step out. Switch leap. Green jump. Oh, you know, and they're just giving up tenths here and there. Not pressing all the way through the landings, and that happens when if a gymnast really thinks they're on and kind of takes the landing for granted, that's when things usually go wrong.
One thing that's kind of interesting about the beam for the University of Utah is Greg Marsden is not here.
No, he hides in the tunnel on beam, and he's the first to admit it. He hates beam. It's nerve-wracking for him, and he really doesn't have anything to do with beam in practice.
It's all on Megan.
It's all on Megan. So he chose his wife well, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And a 4.5, and really a good routine for Nina other than that small balance check on her jump.
Solid performance by Nina Kim for the University of Utah on beam. Utah's 4th competitor on the balance beam. Oregon State's 4th competitor on floor is Jamie Lance, and their only athlete that is competing all around tonight.
I like Oregon State's selection of music. I think they're not overpowering with you know, the really heavy type music, but it's entertaining and it's very lively. Slightly off balance. She had the weight back on her heels and couldn't quite get her foot back to the lunge on that. You know, both of these teams look just a little bit rusty tonight.
I was going to say that neither team is particularly sharp, which is interesting at this stage of the season.
Yeah, and Oregon State's not either. I mean, it's not just Utah. They're not big mistakes,
2 of the better teams in the country.
But a lot of small ones.
Yeah.
Right. And it won't drop their regional qualifying scores if they're not counting them within their top 5. What we're looking for is other teams around the country improving theirs by having better competition. So that's where you wait till Monday to find out what everybody else did.
And in last Monday's national rankings, Utah was hot on the heels of #1 Georgia, very close to the #1 ranking. But
well, and it'll remain to be seen how Georgia does without Courtney Coupetz, who tore her Achilles tendon and had it surgically repaired just this Monday.
So she's
really
out for the remainder of the year.
Well, really for everybody, for all gymnastics fans.
Very true.
And, you know, also potential Olympic team member again. So, unfortunately, we wish the best to Courtney and hope that she has a speedy recovery.
All right, next up for Utah, this is Daria Bijak on the balance beam.
Kind of an unusual amount, really not as difficult as it looks, but certainly original.
We'll give her points for originality.
Handspring layout. And Daria is quickly becoming one of my new favorites. I just think as she has had time to adjust, there's that wobble again, as she's had time to adjust to college life and to gymnastics here, her personality has come through, and I just love the way that she handles the team and interacts with them. I just think she's a really good influence on everybody that she's around.
2-time member of the German national team. This is her 2nd year at Utah, and therefore her 2nd year in the United States. I mean, she's got cultural and environmental and language barriers to overcome. And
absolutely.
I mean, last year had to be very difficult.
I can only imagine. So far, a good routine. You know, the interesting thing is all of the wobbles so far have come from the leaps and jumps and not the more difficult tumbling. which tells me that's just concentration at that point. Slightly overturned on that full turn there. Punch front full. And again, just a hop on the dismount. Now, she's happy to stay on. She knows it wasn't her best, but I think that sometimes you just need to say this, let's get through it. It may not be our best night, but let's not do any more damage.
Back over to the floor now, and this is Oregon State's Mandy Rodriguez.
Arabian double front. Oh, and the flag did not go up. So even though we couldn't see the line, she stayed in bounds. About a tenth to a tenth and a half on the imbalance on the landing. Whip half to front full. So again, just like we were saying, not big mistakes, but certainly less than what they've done at other times during the year. You'll notice the gymnasts usually spend a little bit of time in the corner before their final tumbling run. They're allowed a couple seconds to catch their breath as long as they don't bring the routine to a complete stop or as long as they don't stand there too long.
Mandy Rodriguez.
Another solid effort by Oregon State's Mandy Rodriguez.
Next up on beam for Utah.
And now here we go, Missy.
Well, this, more than anything, this routine is going to be a test of her character.
Ashley Postel.
Not her physical ability, but just her character as a gymnast and as a team member of Utah Gymnastics here. The crowd wants her to rebound. The crowd wants to see the hero in her that we've come to see all year.
2 weeks ago, 9.95 in this building against Utah State and Southern Utah. Her career best, 10.
And Ashley is a former world champion on the balance beam.
Megan Marsden being very vocal over there in her encouragement.
And at least in club, I don't know about college, but you can actually get deducted for coaching during the competitions. And she, like I said, that is just mental. Obviously, there's nothing physical that she needs here. I don't know if Ashley maybe felt her timing was off in practices or if she just let the fallen bars get to her, but she's just capable. And there she's going to, I thought she was going to take it over on that handstand. She did a good job of holding on to it. And it's really hard to watch when you just want an athlete to bounce back and you want to see the panache that it takes. We struggle with seeing that they are human after all, but the way she conducts herself with her attitude towards her teammates is what's going to matter to everybody, much more than the beam routine or her last bar routine.
Well, and she hadn't missed a routine this entire year. Her streak of consecutive hits was quite lengthy coming into tonight, and that streak, of course, is over.
Here's your dismount, round off, double twist. Good landing there.
Our final competitor on floor for Oregon State is Tasha Smith.
Tasha has scored a 10 this year.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
You take that, huh?
And I know that she's a hugely powerful tumbler. We'll see if she has the dance skills to match that. This is her opening tumbling run. She's landing on a 4-inch mat, which is not a deduction. And she really came up short on that. And you know what? I could tell when she landed that she hurt her heel. I don't think she's going to be able to finish this. The way she landed, she was so short.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll get to see it again, but she was so short. And her body was so far forward that her ankle was bent almost all the way back up to her shin on that full twisting double back. And she's trying to be brave, but you can see she's in a lot of pain.
So now what in terms of scoring, do they have a replacement competitor, or?
All the way up through warm-up, someone can be replaced, but not once the team has started their actual competition.
Well, that gets us through 3 rotations, and we'll be back with the 4th and final rotation from the Huntsman Center in just a moment. We are back at the Huntsman Center on the campus of the University of Utah for tonight's gymnastics meet between Utah and Oregon State. And the craziness, Missy Marlowe, continues
yeah,
here.
This has not been a good night. You know, breaks are usually good unless you come back this way. And yeah, both teams have had problems. Utah is still in a comfortable lead, although if they have another event like they have on the last 2, that may change. But like you said, Oregon State's been struggling also. And at this point, I think it's become a let's just get through this, let's do a respectable job, and let's call it a night.
And we have a couple of lineup changes that we'll tell you about as we get to them, one for each team. But we're going to start off with Oregon State now on the beam, and this is Yuki Lam.
Right, well, and I was correct. The teams can substitute routines right up through their timed warm-up before the event, but not once the first competitor has started competing.
So Tasha Smith on the floor.
That score, yeah, they have to take the 0. They cannot replace her with someone else.
So all the other 5 scores had to count.
Here's her tumbling, back handspring, step out, layout, step out, good solid landing. Well, she's pretty heavily taped. It's hard to see with the flesh colored, but all the way from her ankles up to her knee on the left leg, and pretty heavily taped through her ankle on the right also.
This is a grueling sport.
Well, it is. It's extremely high impact, and there's no way to really truly train it and take the impact out. You know, on vault, you either vault or you don't vault. You can you can soften up the landings, but there's no way to lessen the impact on the board or against the horse. Same with tumbling. There's softer surfaces to tumbling onto, but it's a very unforgiving sport. And even the drills for gymnastics tend to be pretty high impact.
Well, and these leaps on the balance beam, that's not a very soft surface to be coming down.
No, it's not. Well, and they're one-legged landings also. And a routine. Now, that was a good start for Oregon State. They can take some good momentum from that routine.
And now, Utah will wrap up the final rotation on the floor. And the first competitor for the Red Rocks is Jessica Duke.
And Jessica has such an important job here. She's going to set the tone for this entire team to either stage a great comeback and help this crowd rally behind them, or, you know, possibly not. But she has a good command of this floor routine, and I think she's going to be great. Here's her opening tumbling run. Double pike, landed easily.
But Jessica's off to a good start on her floor routine.
You'll notice that some gymnasts dance equally throughout the routine. Others opt to get the first 2 passes over with a little sooner with the music. There's a whip half to front full. Required leap combination, scissor ring leap to turgite full to a Shushanova. A little bit more mellow piece of music than some that we've heard.
And this crowd could maybe use something a little more upbeat right about now. You know, seriously, I don't know if I've seen the Huntsman Center like this in a long, long time.
Well, you know, their standard is so high.
You're right.
The bar is so high that when there's a down night, you know, I mean, think about any other sport. The football team, if they were to win by 2 points rather than 2 touchdowns, a win's a win, right? But with gymnastics, we're just used to seeing some type of a record-breaking performance, whether it's an individual, a team score, an attendance record, something, anything, on almost a regular basis. So we're really pretty spoiled.
I was just going to, that's the exact word I was going to use. This crowd is very spoiled when it comes to this gymnastics team here at the University of Utah. All right, for Oregon State on the beam, this is Jennifer Kessler.
Back handspring step out to layout, step out, layout, step out. by far the most difficult tumbling combination that we've seen on beam today, and boy did she not have a problem with that. Landed easily, required full turn. Full twisting straddle jump. This routine so far is just packed with difficulty, both in the tumbling and the dance. Straddle jump, pike jump. Round off, double twist, and that was a great routine for Oregon State. I mean, not only was it incredibly difficult, but she made that routine look so easy, like she was just walking on the floor.
That was Jennifer Kessler, and the Beavers putting a little pressure on Utah. Utah's lead after 2 rotations was 0.5. After 3 rotations, it was down to 0.45. And now here's the substitution for Utah on floor. Stephanie Neff jumps in here in place of Ashley Postel. And Stephanie's been out for about 5 weeks with an Achilles, a sore Achilles tendon, so this is her first routine in about a month and a half.
Well, she certainly had no problem that first pass. Punch, double front, landed with practically no effort at all. There's front layout, pike front. No signs of that Achilles strain so far.
So this substitution now on floor, I mean, that affects the entire lineup. It affects the operations crew. They've got to get the music in a different order now. I guess that's not a big deal.
I actually didn't think about that, but you're right. Well, and the only thing that matters is she's getting a chance to show the coaches that she's a go-to person, and really preferably someone that they want to plan on having the lineup.
And she had competed.
It's a really good opportunity for Stephanie.
She had competed in floor exercise the first 4 meets of the year until she hurt that Achilles, so.
Good point.
Pretty solid.
Punch, double front. I could do one in the air as well as she can do that. Does that count for anything?
Sure.
She just makes it look so easy. Every time I see her do that, I'm just amazed.
Over on beam, this is Laura Ann Chong for Oregon State.
And gymnasts with a lot of flexibility are by far the most entertaining beam routines to watch. There is a one-arm back handspring layout step out, and she looked pretty square on the back handspring. It looked to me like she just threw the layout itself off to the side. But as I was saying, gymnasts with good shoulder and leg flexibility, similar to Nina Kim's, are really the prettiest to watch with the extension and the more balletic type style. Punch front. It is required to do either a front or a side element. Sheet jump, and that does not look very difficult, but it is so scary to lose sight of the beam. And to get the bonus on that, the gymnast must be completely extended backwards and release the head back. And a front fall. Unfortunate for that fall, because that really was a pretty good routine.
Now for the Utes, in the number 3 position on the floor is Beth Rizzo.
And a proud favorite about this, just because of her success story. One of only 2 Utah gymnasts ever to come in as a walk-on and leave as an All-American.
That is a great story. It really is.
Well, she's just such a hard worker, has a never say die attitude. And look what it has done for her. Full and a half twist, a front layout.
And this is, you could say, Beth's specialty.
Absolutely.
A couple of 9-9 so far this year. And the Utes could use a 9-9 right about now.
The Utes could use it. Yes, they could. Taking a breather before a final tumbling run. Round up back handspring, top double back. Oh, and she barely saved that. Had her hands touched,
I don't know how she did save it.
I don't know either. Sheer adrenaline, I think, at that point. Had her hands touched, it would have been a mandatory 3/10, but her hands did not touch, so probably 2 to 2.5.
All right, that gets us halfway through the fourth and final rotation. We'll be back with more from the Huntsman Center after this. Back here on the campus of the University of Utah for college gymnastics between the Red Rocks and the Beavers of Oregon State. And up on the beam for Oregon State is Mandy Rodriguez, and Mandy is taking the place, Missy, of Tasha Smith, who got hurt on the floor exercise.
And there's a back handspring to lay out, step out. Just a small balance check. And a standing front. Wow, that is extremely difficult to not hurdle and punch into a front. She had just a little bit of problems on the landing. There's a pike jump, a little bit of a foot separation to a double stack. The pause in between will prevent those from being, in the judge's eyes, from being connected, and therefore hurt her bonus on that. Those are put together well enough. And a Rudy, good.
Here's Daria Bijak for Utah, competing in the all-around tonight, along with Christina Basquet for the Red Rock. And Daria's having a solid night.
She absolutely is, and this tumbling will just knock your socks off.
All right, I'm ready.
Are you ready? Front handspring, double front, punch front, and she completely buckled, landing the double front. And you know, she nailed that in warm-ups. I'm not sure what happened right there. I have never seen her miss that like that. You know, at this point, they're probably wondering just how bad it's going to be in the locker room after, because Coach Marsden is never one to make excuses to or from his athletes. And, you know, I can remember a few, even all these years later, that were closed doors and not pretty, and I really think they're going to have some, some pretty big heart-to-hearts here.
Well, we mentioned it's been 12 days since Utah's last competition, and that will not and should not be used as an excuse.
Absolutely not. And you know, the good thing is that the gymnasts know that. I mean, they're not going to make any excuses for themselves either, but they're going to have to sit through a couple minutes of some ugly words, I think.
Utah's Daria Bijak on floor exercise.
You know, and at least she will still come off and acknowledge her teammates and just, you know, conduct herself with a lot of class here, which is really important. When your team is struggling, you really have to think about what your image is and what you're going to give the crowd to leave with and to come back with next time.
This is Claire Pierce. First time we've seen her tonight for Oregon State.
Beautiful
that
press
was delicate.
handstand mount. There's a front aerial. Again, a blind landing. Hard to keep the hips square through that large of a range of motion. Back handspring layout, step out. you know, a part of beam is just knowing how well you can cover the mistake. Sometimes a gymnast can be fairly off, and if they're in control enough to keep moving, it doesn't always look all that bad.
Won't be a major deduction from the judges.
Fake it till you make it is the phrase there. You like that?
A little insider information
it
there. We appreciate that.
Can't do much on vault and bars, but beam and floor, there can be a little bit of wiggle room sometimes. There's cartwheel swing through full twist. And Oregon is rallying on the beam. They are not giving up. They're not giving anything away. The falls have killed them, but you know, they're in there and they're fighting and they're supporting each other, and they look good doing it.
Well, and like we talked about earlier, they will be one of the teams that will be fighting to get into the NCAA tournament and then fighting to get into the Super Six. So we may not have seen the last of these Oregon State girls. All right, now for Utah, this is Annie DeLuzio.
And an incredible triple twist. I mean, it cannot be done any better than she just did that. Truly unbelievable. I mean, the strength in her legs.
It looked like more than a triple. I mean, she was just twisting and twisting and twisting.
Do more than a triple.
That was really something.
Well, and her leaps and jumps are so completely extended. They're never underturned, never undersplit, and that counts for a lot. Full and a half twist to front layout step out. Required to do 2 somersaults in the same tumbling path at least once in the routine.
Annie is a sophomore, and she is on fire on floor. The last 2 times out, 9.925.
Right. Well, and this kind of strength and power is the reason why she's capable of doing a double twist on the vault also. Very few gymnasts in the country can do that, even at the elite level.
Catching her breath here.
Final tumbling run. Round up back handspring. 2.5 twist, and boy, did Utah need this routine. So more of a twister than a somersaulter. Notice there are no double backs in the routine, but just amazing twisting. And you know, I mean, you could almost walk right underneath her when she punches for those passes. Here's the 2.5 twist.
Really strong.
And you have to remember too that floor routines are just exhausting. I don't know if they look that hard to someone that hasn't tried one, but by the time you pass up a minute 10 and get to finishing the routine, really exhausting.
They look hard. All right, this is Jamie Lance, Oregon State's final competitor on balance beam.
Back handspring step out, layout step out. Hard full turn, and so far, finishing up the way Oregon State would absolutely like to see their team finish here. Obviously comfortable on the beam. Not only can she dance through the routine, making it look effortlessly, but she's comfortable enough to actually add a little bit of expression to it, usually reserved only for floor routines.
And during this beam routine by Jamie Lance, the crowd got a look at Annie DeLuzio's floor score, which was a very good 9.90.
Good. And that was a great, great routine for Oregon State. And a really strong note for them to finish up their competition on also.
And now Utah will finish its portion of tonight's competition with Christina Basquette on the floor.
And she warmed up some beautiful full twisting double pikes, which sometimes she has a hard time with, and they were just dead on in warm-up. So let's hope she doesn't change anything. And, you know, she pulled it off. She was a little bit low, and even though it didn't look too bad, that was a real ankle cruncher.
So she may be in a little pain then, you're saying?
I think it's good that she did that one in competition. You're forced to keep going, and it helps. Full and a half twist to front layout. And like I've said before, I just absolutely love this floor routine. The dance is creative. It has a good amount of hip hop and kind of some fun dancing, yet it still continues to move. And it's just so indicative of her style and her personality. They're one tumbling pass away here from finishing up this meet that for the most part I think the Utes would like to forget about. Count up back handspring, tight double back, and a really strong finish for Utah, you know, and they needed that and the fans needed that.
Well, Christina liked it, her teammates liked it, and this crowd of more than 11,000 at the Huntsman Center liked it. We'll see if the judges liked it. That's going to wrap up the competition tonight here between Utah and Oregon State. We'll be back and tally up the scores and see if Utah was able to hold on for the win. We'll do that right after this. We're back here at the John M. Huntsman Center to announce tonight's winner of the meet between Utah and Oregon State, and Utah was able to hold on. Missy, probably not so much because of the way they were
right.
able to perform, but Oregon State had to count some falls.
Utah is darn lucky that Oregon State did not have a good meet either, because really this is, I mean, it's almost hard to even know what to say. It's one thing to make a small mistake here and there, or maybe a big mistake somewhere, but, you know, I mean, routine after routine after routine, and not that there weren't bright spots. I mean, some of the gymnasts had some great individual performances, but as a team, a unified team effort, this was just really, really weak. And I think they're going to go back in the locker room and spend some time right now talking about how to regroup and how to come back strong before they go up and meet the alumni in the alumni reception here, which they probably wish they didn't have to do at this point. I think they all just want to go home.
Well, you mentioned bright spots on floor. Annie DeLuzio's 9.9 was a very solid routine. Christina Basquet had that one little bobble, but she wound up with a 9.875, so two solid routines to finish up tonight on the floor for the University of Utah.
Well, they held it together and they got the win. This is not the message that they want to send to the rest of the country. Is that, you know, look, we made a whole bunch of mistakes. I mean, they were, you know, they know that they're going to be battling for the national championship this year, and every competition matters. So, you know, maybe this is a case where they've gotten all these out of the way now. I mean, you have to put some kind of positive spin on it, or what do you have, right? So maybe it's a good test of character now rather than, say, at regionals.
You get it over and done with, get it out of your system, and you move on.
There's no other way to look at it. That's all you can do.
It's interesting. Tonight's score for Utah, 196.300, is the exact score they had on opening night. And that felt a lot better back on January 11th against Georgia than it does tonight against Oregon State.
Yeah, good point.
All right, next up for Utah, it's Florida on the road. That's next week. The following week at Michigan. These are two of the top 5 teams in the country. And then Utah will be back at the John M. Huntsman Center on Friday, March 28th at 7 o'clock against BYU. That game will be rebroadcast here on ABC4 on Sunday, March 30th at 2 p.m. Wesley Ruff and you, Missy Marlowe, will have that broadcast.
Great.
Utah and BYU, always fun when the Utes and Cougars get together.
Always. Looking forward to it.
Well, it was fun tonight, despite some bobbles and some missteps for the Utes. Utah beats Oregon State by the final of 196.300 to 195.150. For Missy Marlowe, I'm Kent Roop saying good night, everybody.
Good night.